Hey guys, Useless here, and today we are going to be reacting to a film theory video. So I think I might actually end up disagreeing with this video quite a bit. It seems like he's going to be talking about like the about how critics critic audience or like critic scores are bad in relation to like the Mario movie, for example. And I actually do think that I'll probably end up disagreeing because I don't know. I think people just have a really weird relationship with critic scores and stuff like that. So we will see. But for now, let's not preempt it too much and let's just hit play.
The process of reviewing movies is broken. The system we expect to serve as a barometer for the quality of a film is not working the way we want. But, well, it's not working the way we want. It is working the way they want. You see, the review process may be broken, but the powerful people who broke it wanted to stay that way.
Okay, I actually don't know what he's talking about.
Welcome to Film Theory, the show that hides power-ups inside of bricks. Go ahead, hit that one and see what comes out. Ooh, you got the subscribe button. That one gives you big brain abilities. Well, you know what they say, knowledge.
You should do that with my channel, not his.
At this point, do I even need to ask if you've seen the Mario movie? It's been shaking loose so much coin that you'd think you were suddenly in Wario Land. This thing is a mega mushroom-sized hit at the global box office, sitting at nearly $1 billion in worldwide gross as I write this with no signs of slowing down. This thing has put up such huge numbers that industry experts are even bumping up their projections for the entire year of cinema earnings just because of this one film.
Wow.
Everyone is calling out the fact that this one movie has such a shocking overperformance, which, can we just be real here? Mario is more recognizable to children than Mickey Mouse. People are surprised that a feature film from the marketing masterminds behind—
Nah, that's true. That's like I was like, I don't know that I would have called the Mario movie making $1 billion necessarily, but like obviously this movie was going to be successful. It's like obviously this was going to be the biggest video game movie of all time.
the Minions is doing well. Whoa, color me shocked, loyal theorists. Who could have seen this one coming? I'm like a surprised Pikachu up in here. But something that was a legitimate surprise to me and to the internet at large was the response from movie critics, especially when compared to how different it was from all the normal people walking out of it. As of the writing of the script, just 59% of critics on Rotten Tomatoes scored this one positively, planting it in the rotten category. And I just gotta say, that does not track with the movie that I saw. Was the Mario movie perfect? By any means, no, clearly not. I was pretty upfront in my last theory, acknowledging the weak pacing, the poor character motivation, and the fact that the soundtrack is just like the director.
Oh, this is so I hate. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't hate you, Matt Pat. I actually really like you, but I really disagree. I don't understand this perspective. It's like I don't understand the perspective that people have regarding the Mario movie, where they're like, yeah, it's actually not that good of a movie. It doesn't have very strong characters. The writing isn't very good. The pacing is way too fast. But like, it's just a Mario movie. Why are you can't criticize it for those things. It's like, yeah, you can. You absolutely can criticize it for those things.
Forgot to turn off his Spotify playlist. But just listen to some of these reviews. Quote, the whole package is a deranged mishmash, an assault on the senses with a subpar animation style. The Super Mario Brothers movie is the Illumination style done at its absolute worst. Okay, the absolute worst?
Are you sure about that?
Meanwhile,
Yeah, the Mario movie is not, it is not better really than the Minions movies. I don't know what to tell you. Or at least I haven't seen, actually no, I have not seen the Minions movies. I've only seen the Despicable Me movies, and it's like, yeah, the Mario movie isn't very good. And I've said this before, it's like, there's literally nothing going on in the movie. There's nothing to take away from the movie other than, ooh, look, I get to point at the screen and point at things that I recognize. I recognize the power-ups. Look, he's wearing a catsuit. I too have played Super Mario 3D World. It's like, there's just nothing going on in the movie. There's just nothing to really appreciate about the movie beyond that. Although, yeah, I will disagree with whoever that critic was that says that the animation isn't very good. I'll disagree with that. I actually do think the animation is really nice. But yeah, it's like it's not a very good movie. Because I would wonder, because he's cherry picking quotes from reviews. I would wonder if those are just like cherry picked, and it's not like it's. I highly doubt that those critics would say like, the animation is subpar, so because of that, I dislike the movie. It's like, I'm sure that they had a bunch of reasonable criticisms, and they also said that the animation was subpar.
Now, the audience reception sits comfortably at 96% positive, much closer to what seems to be the consensus from all us lowly normies and other armchair reviewers on YouTube.
I don't know what the movie critics watched, but it certainly wasn't this film. This is not by any means a bad movie.
I am kind of surprised now
Yeah, it kind of is. I don't know. Yeah, okay.
to see these critic scores because I'm like, how could you hate on this movie?
Honestly, I'm usually one to agree with the left side of the Rotten Tomatoes score, but the critics are kind of going a little too hard on this one.
And it's that division that really interests me. With a 59% critic score and a 96% audience rating, that means that the Mario movie has a gigantic 37-point difference. Why? And why does it feel like this sort of gap between critic and audience has been increasing over the years?
I'm gonna. That's the thing. I don't know. Somebody needs to do like a meta analysis, or I don't know if this even exists. Are critic and audience scores usually that far apart? I don't. Or is it only that whenever it does happen, it's like the people who agree, who really care about needing other people to feel the same way that they do, is that when they like super point it out, you know? It's like, I don't know. Honestly, I don't like me. Like here's my ultimate thing about this whole thing is like, I don't care if, like, I don't see it as a bad thing that critics and audiences necessarily disagree with one another, because it's a subjective medium, you know? It's like, yeah, it's like, oh, this person dislikes a thing that I like, or this person likes a thing that I dislike. I just don't, like, I don't see that as a bad thing. And so, yeah, since I don't pay attention to like Rotten Tomatoes scores that much until like somebody's complaining about it, I don't know that that's true, that they even disagree all that much. Because like if you look at like Guardians of the Galaxy, for example, the audience score is in the audience score I think is like in the 90s, and the critic score is in the 80s. So it's like, well, they don't disagree with each other there. So I don't know. I'd be interested to see if there's some kind of like meta analysis or whatever, or like a study that somebody's done about this topic.
Over the past decade, there are a ton of movies that were hits with the audience that just wound up as complete whiffs to critics. Some notable examples here: Nintendo's console war rival Sony has a lot of trouble in this category. Venom has a 30% with critics, but an 80% from audiences. A 50-point
base. Okay, hold on. To all you people that are like, the critics are always wrong. Audience, I only pay attention to the audience score. Is this your king? Because that is true. All the Sony Marvel movies are like, actually, yes, they're like famously like have like decent audience ratings, but really bad critic scores. So I ask to all you people that say that, is this your king? Is the audience score your king?
41% with critics and 90% audience.
90% score for Uncharted?
The Greatest Showman, 29% divide. Netflix original,
Based.
Rainbow
Greatest Showman
Six Sides are
sucks.
44, 56, and 57
Nah.
points.
No. Okay. I ask again. Is the audience score your king? Wow. Wow. Dang.
Wings respectively. In every single one of these cases, fewer than half the critics recommend the movie, but more than 80% of the audience does. And it works both ways too. There are plenty of movies that critics loved, but audiences didn't. The Last Jedi, Ralph Breaks the Internet, Us, Hail Caesar, Uncut Gems. How does this keep happening? Why does this keep happening? And it's not like critics and audiences don't agree most of the time. Top Gun Maverick, Avengers Endgame, Spider-Man No Way Home, John Wick Chapter 4, all recent examples that have critics and audience scores in the 90s. Similar.
I mean, I'm gonna be interested to see like what the thesis of this video ends up being, but it's just like, I think it's just because art is super subjective and sometimes people just disagree with one another. I don't know that there's gonna end up being a super like clear-cut answer as to why it is. I just think it's I just think that people just disagree sometimes. I don't know. I'll be interested to see what he says, though.
Similarly, high scores can also be found with classics like Lord of the Rings, Gladiator, The Matrix. So is there any common feature here that we can find across the films that have this extreme division between critic and audience? Loyal theorists, this has been a subject that's been on my mind for literal years. And the fact that it's happened again with something as innocuous as the Mario movie has finally gotten me to look into it. After all, it kind of feels like critics and audiences...
But it's also one of those things where, like, where I think people need to realize with Rotten Tomatoes is that it's not even so much like when something has a 50% Rotten Tomatoes score, it's not even necessarily the case. Jesus, okay. It's not even necessarily the case that the critics hated the movie. Like, it could just be the case that they were like, it wasn't very good. Right? Because all a critic needs to do to like dock a movie down a couple pegs is to just say that they didn't like it. They don't need to say that like, oh, this was the worst movie we've ever seen. It's just like, I didn't like it. And then, so that makes it more negative on the Rotten Tomatoes meter. Because the only thing that the Rotten Tomatoes meter actually like tells you is what percentage of critics liked the movie. That's all it tells you at the end of the... Jesus, are you serious? Sorry. That's all it tells you. That's all it tells you. So... It's not even it's not a percentage of quality. It's a percentage of just whether or not they liked it. So it's not some might say that it's kind of a useless metric, and I might even agree. I don't know. I'd have to think about it a bit more. But it's not even necessarily that there's like a huge disparity between how much audiences enjoy a movie versus how much critics dislike the movie. I don't know. It's a little weird. I don't know. Well, what else does he have to say?
So what's going on? Well, after looking into the history of reviews, I found evidence to suggest that there are some pretty powerful players in this game banking on the fact that there's a war between audience and critic. Munch down those mushrooms, loyal theorists. We're entering the warp pipe. First, let's set up the parameters of what we're actually talking about here. Rotten Tomatoes actually has very specific rules and formulas for what makes a piece of media good or bad in their eyes. For both critic and audience scores, a good review is anything with 3.5 stars or...
Oh, he's actually going to explain it.
60% of those reviews are good, a film is considered rotten. 60% or higher gets you a fresh rating. So with that in mind, let's talk about our two groups. The audience is exactly what it sounds like. Anyone who wants to voice their opinion about the film. That means it's a big group with a lot of different types of people in it. Shocking, I know. Meanwhile, there's some pretty strict criteria involved with Rotten Tomatoes approving critics for their site. Basically, it boils down to frequent quality criticism across written, video, or audio reviews. So the regular person hopping onto Twitter or TikTok to share their hot takes as the credits roll ain't getting added to that side of the tomato meter. And that matters. According to career analysis website Zippia, film criticism in the United States has a pretty clear demographic. More than 80% are men, more than 67% are white, 90% of them complete
Bro,
college
what
degree,
the?
they have a median age of
What even?
4. A lot of them also live in larger
What
cities.
even?
Heavily involved in filmmaking like Los Angeles.
What is your what the heck?
Don't define a person, live
I'm sorry, I am not listening to anything MatPat is saying right now. Dude, this is so stupid. This is so stupid. I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to rewind. I was not listening to anything he said. What the? You can't knock me into a hole. That's not fair. Are you serious? That's so stupid. You have to get around this. My life is so difficult, guys. You don't even know. The things that I have to deal with. Where? Oh, gosh, I'm forgetting about where I went. Okay, here we go. I'm sorry. I can't rewind and press play on the video until I get my things. I'm so sorry. I also have a strict no editing policy, so you're watching this. But let's be real. You don't care about my opinion on movies. You're here for this professional Minecraft. Are you actually kidding me right now? Are you Oh my gosh. Oh my actual gosh. What even is your problem? What even is your problem? I don't understand. I don't understand why you're doing this to me. It's just so aggressive for literally no reason. Like you literally have no reason to be this aggressive. But you're doing it anyways because you're cruel. This is cruelty. Okay, we got this. It's not even an issue. It's not even an issue. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. Okay, what do you even want me to do? Okay, fine. I'll go back. It's so dark down there.
Clear demographic. More than 80% are men, more than 67% are white, 90% of them completed some sort of college degree, they have a median age of 40 to 44. A lot of them also live in larger cities, especially ones heavily involved in filmmaking like Los Angeles and New York. Obviously, these traits don't define a person. Lived experiences are going to be far more important to a human being than what boxes they check for statistics. But this is useful information setting a tone for the majority of the reviews that are affecting the score. Rotten Tomatoes must have agreed, since in 2018 they tried to open up their roster of critics to a greater variety of sources, but were ultimately met with a very limited degree of success. So with all of this in mind, it starts to become clear why there's a division here. Think about the people in the audience review section. They're anyone from a single NASA-employed rocket scientist with 5 kids.
Okay,
high school student wanting to gentle minion with the
let's be real here. I mean, like, I feel like most of the people that are going to bother to create a Rotten Tomatoes account and leave a review are probably also going to be white. Am I wrong in saying this? Like, is that not? I feel like that's probably the case, right? I don't know. I don't know. I could be wrong about that.
the boys, and all of those voices are treated equally. Meanwhile, I think everyone can come up with a rough idea of the stereotypical critic. Ratatouille hit this one on the head in the food world.
I don't like food. I love it. If I don't love it, I don't
But why would that impact the split we see here between those critics and audiences
okay,
on the
okay,
Mario
okay.
movie? Well, I suspect that a lot of it comes down to
Okay.
expectation. When you have a specialized group of people that are so similar, like critics, they're likely going to have specific expectations about what they want out of something. And in the case of the Mario movie and other divisive films like it, seems like the reviews kind of miss the point. The Mario movie is a kids movie aimed unapologetically at a kids audience. Universal and Nintendo want kids to be the people who want to see this film.
Okay.
most. It wants to be the first movie that you saw in theaters for an entire generation.
Okay. I really disagree with this take. Just because something is a kids movie doesn't mean that it can't be good. I don't think that the critics were looking for Shakespeare. I think they were just looking for a good movie. You know what else is a kids movie? The Iron Giant. That's also a really great movie. You know what else is a kids movie? Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. It's also a really good movie. You know what's also a kids movie? Toy Story. It's also a really good movie. It's like there are plenty of like animated children's films that also have really high Rotten Tomatoes scores. I don't agree with this I don't agree with this narrative that like, oh well, the critics are just too stuck up and we do not like children's films. We need films to be about people suffering through the Holocaust. If it's not real drama, then we will not like it. Like that's just not true. I feel like that's a really I don't know. I just feel like that's like a really shitty narrative to push out. But we'll see what else he says.
Will also be good enough for the adults that take them. It is not trying to be a masterpiece. It is trying to introduce kindergartners to the idea of movies. Overall, it works great. That's also not what a lot of other modern animated films are trying to do. Look at the Lego Movie, Puss in Boots, Into the Spider-Verse. Those are animated films too, to be sure, but they're action comedies with grown-up ideas that have the coat of kids movie paint slapped on top. Stuff that would likely appeal more to that college-educated, middle-aged critic. But the Mario movie, it's not pretending to be a kids movie. It is a kids movie. Mario's biggest problem as a character is pretty basic hero's journey stuff. Learning that he needs to believe in himself and his abilities. Oh, he also needs to eat his vegetables like Moss.
Okay, but kids like those movies too. What do you... So like what you're saying is that, well, it wasn't trying to be a very good movie? But and this is my thing. It's like, okay, if you don't want to be a good movie, then don't expect critics to say that it's a good movie. It's like, what? Like, a critic shouldn't review a movie based on what they're trying to do. All a critic should have to do is walk into the theater, watch the movie, and then say whether or not it was good. If you're telling me, and I don't even know that this is necessarily the case, but like, if you're telling me that the filmmakers of the Mario movie were purposely trying to make a bad movie, then they made a bad movie. And the critics accurately stated that, yeah, it wasn't very good. And if you're also stating that it wasn't very good, but you enjoyed it anyways, then that's fine. That's okay. You can still enjoy it. Nobody is telling you that you can't enjoy it. But just accept that to other people, it not being a good movie leads to them not enjoying it. I don't. This is just such weird framing.
Said so we can grow big and strong. Mushrooms aren't vegetables, obviously, but you get the idea.
I lost my stakes.
Mario's a lot closer to something like the Paw Patrol movie, but it seems like critics went in expecting it to be Pixar levels of story, or at least that was my initial hypothesis. But when I looked for evidence to confirm that suspicion, it didn't quite pan out.
My apologies. I swear to God, this fucking creep, these fucking creepers, fucking mobs, fucking. Okay, I should probably head back up. Okay, let's see if he has something else to say. My apologies for taking my anger out on you, Matthew Pathew. Still, that's aimed at anybody else that holds the straw man position.
Because when you look at other kids' fodder like Despicable Me, Sing, Kung Fu Panda, the Paw Patrol movie like I just called out, all of their scores match critic to audience. Even on things considered rotten like Minions, audiences and critics agree it was trash, but they still are gonna show it to the kids anyway. So what was it about the Mario movie specifically that caused this divide? Well, to see if I could actually spot any trends here, I pulled a bunch of movies that had a 20 percentage point or more difference in either direction. Those where the audience scores were higher included the Mario movie, obviously, that's why we're here. Also the ones that I mentioned at the top, Venom, Uncharted, Greatest Showman,
Venom.
like most Fast and Furious movies, Hillbilly Elegy, Boondock Saints, Hotel Transylvania, the live-action Lion King remake, Maleficent 1 and 2, Ghostbusters Afterlife, the live-action Cats, data didn't specify if it was the one with or without the buttholes, and basically every Transformers and Pirates of the Caribbean movie ever. Oh, and I can't forget Morbius 2, Return to Morbin Time. On the other end of the spectrum, the movies that critics liked that audiences didn't included Ralph Breaks the Internet, Uncut Gems, Turning Red, The Last Jedi, Us, and Hail Caesar. Notice any trends here? Because I certainly...
Well, the trend that I noticed is that Uncut Gems is great. Audiences, you guys suck booty. Turning Red is great. Audiences, you guys suck booty. I haven't seen Ralph Breaks the Internet. I haven't seen Us. I haven't seen Hail Caesar. I don't mind The Last Jedi. I don't know. I'm sorry. I guess I'd be in the middle on that one.
Do. Let's pull them out by group because I can actually see a handful of things all at work here. First, very clearly the critics don't appreciate mindless action. That's why all the Pirates, Transformers, and Fast and Furious films are in these buckets. The Netflix action movies, even comic book movies like Venom. They're not very deep, they're largely formulaic, but they're also fun. They do action, and to be fair, many of them do the action well. And sometimes as an audience,
but okay, but then pull up the Mission Impossible movies. Those movies also don't have like particularly deep plots. Actually, I'd be curious to know. Let me see. Mission Possible. Let's do the Fallout. Rotten Tomatoes. This movie has a 97% critic rating. So it's not that critics don't mind like mindless action. Because the Mission Impossible movies are not deep. What about the John Wick movies? I think he pulled I think he showed it earlier, but let me see. John Wick 4 Rotten Tomatoes. 94. Okay.
You just want to turn your brain off and let a movie wash over you. You want to be entertained. Critics appear to be the exact opposite. They're bringing notepads. They're scouring every frame. Their brain is running overtime because it's in work mode. They just can't let a movie wash over them and enjoy it for what it is. They're trying to find something constructive to say about every single movie that they watch every single week. And when all the movie does is just tick a bunch of boxes instead of offering something different, well, that's going to lose points for the critic who watched a similar movie last week and the week before that.
I don't know that that's it. I think that some movies do those things better than others. Like John Wick does action better than the Fast and the Furious, and I love the Fast and the Furious. It's not that the action in them and those movies are bad, but Wick does it way better. Mission Impossible does action way better. So it's not necessarily that critics don't mind just a fun movie, but they just don't find those movies as fun, you know?
And the week before that. Treating movies as just an amusement park ride is just not as effective for the critic. Secondly, looking at this list, critics don't seem to understand the humor and sensibilities of the internet. Cats, Morbius, I mean, we all know why you're here. You are the so bad it's fun to watch crowd. I saw Cats in a rowdy Friday night theater with a group of kids in front of me who kept meowing at the screen, and let me tell ya, it was the best cinema experience of my life.
We come to this place for magic.
Yep, you're right, Nicole.
Yeah, I mean that's an interesting perspective, I guess. Yeah, I guess it's possible that there's like a good amount of audience scores that like watched Cats and Morbius and rated those movies higher because of memes. That could be a thing, but I don't know that that's something that happens all that often. Like I don't think that meme movies are made often. I don't know, that's interesting.
Nicole Kidman, I do come for the magic. The magic of the Taylor Swift fangirl sitting next to me during that Cats showing, shouting at the screen 40 minutes in, "Where's Taylor?" It was awesome. The entire audience erupted in laughter. But to a critic, they're not appreciating movies ironically. They're not dressing up like a gentle minion like the rest of us. They're not waiting for Jared Leto to morb all over that screen. And as a result, those movies get lower scores.
Yeah, I don't know how much of that necessarily plays into it. I don't know. I know that meme movies are made often enough for that to be a trend necessarily.
Look no further than Ralph Breaks the Internet, a movie that got higher critical scores than audience scores because despite trying its best to riff off the humor and sensibilities of online meme content, it did it in the most normie way possible. Online communities can see through that thin attempt to cater to them, which results in lower overall scores. Lastly, and this is perhaps the biggest disagreement between the two camps, critics don't respond to nostalgia and familiarity, while audiences clearly eat it up. Ghostbusters Afterlife, it's fun, it's enjoyable, but it's also not a 94% positive movie. But audiences love the fact that it felt just new enough. You got old favorites, you got recreations of classic moments, but with new enough faces and plot lines. Maleficent and Maleficent 2, movies that began as a familiar and beloved fairy tale, except told with a new twist. It's safe, it's nostalgic, but also just a little bit new. That Lion King remake, despite its quality, it's the movie equivalent of a one-way trip to Nostalgia Town. Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales. It's not great, but audiences were clearly happy to revisit a fictional world that they hadn't seen in a while. And now, just take a look at the flip side. What do critics like that audiences don't? Things that feel too new, do things too differently, are a bit too far of a departure, or that may be good, unique ideas that maybe don't fully come together in the end. To the critic who sees a movie at least once a week, they're placing premiums on things that are interesting. The Last Jedi is a perfect example of this, where audience reviews on Rotten Tomatoes focus on it not feeling like Star Wars, or the characters not behaving in ways that they would expect. The critics...
Yeah, I mean, let's be real. I don't know that critics need new things necessarily. I just think they need good things. I don't think that things need to be new. I think the word new is weird. I just think critics want good things. And I think audiences, it's not that in their brains they don't want good things, but I do think more so with audiences, the things that they find good might just be different, right? Like especially when it comes to something like The Last Jedi. I don't think that there's any doubt that there are a lot of people that simply because Luke Skywalker in that movie wasn't the Luke Skywalker that they wanted, there's no doubt that there are a lot of audience members that dislike the movie because of that. Now, are there plenty of you guys that also just simply didn't dislike the movie, or that simply disliked the movie because you thought it was a bad movie? Absolutely. I'm not saying that there aren't a lot of you guys out there either, but we can acknowledge that is a good chunk of people, right? Like we can we can be intellectually honest and acknowledge that. But I think for the most part, I don't think critics necessarily are biased in that way, one way or the other. I think all they really look at is the movie good? I don't know.
Praise the movie for shaking things up, trying to do new things, taking the franchise in new directions. Turning Red is another one that falls into this bucket. It's a Pixar movie that most parents would take their kids to thinking it's gonna be a good time killer for the family. But then you have scenes about periods and pads, and suddenly the room with your kids turns a bit awkward.
I have ibuprofen, vitamin D, a hot water bottle, and pads. You are a woman now, and your body is starting to change.
To a critic, that's brave and necessary storytelling about topics that don't get screen time. To the parent who is looking to kill some hours with their kid, that's an uncomfortable conversation on the way home from the movies. I'm not saying it's...
Okay, hot take. If your child is old enough to be able to like recognize that that's like a weird scene and start asking you questions about it, then you're a bad parent and you should have told them about their periods at this age. What is wrong with you people out there that are just like not telling your kids that they're going to have a period at some point? Like your daughter is just like spewing blood out of her pussy and you just like didn't warn her? Like, I don't even... What is wrong with you people?
It's good. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying it's the truth, and it's gonna affect your score. Now take all of that information and look at the Mario movie. It is all of these things rolled up into one. It's mostly pretty colors and fun action with a pretty thin plot. It caters to online communities and gaming scenes that critics don't typically engage with, and it's speedrunning its way through tons of Easter eggs and nostalgia bait. This movie is basically everything that critics don't like, all in one convenient package. So I think that's a pretty good explanation for what's going on with this divide between audiences and critics as it relates to movies like Mario. But I'm still not entirely satisfied with the answer. Like, sure, maybe that's how it's happening, but why is it happening? And more importantly, why does it keep happening? This disparity between critics and audiences is a big enough issue, and it happens often enough that it's been on people's radars for at least a decade now. You would think at this point we would have figured some way to sort this out. I mean, shouldn't we all be on the same side here? Audiences ideally get valuable information about movies before spending time.
So, my thing is movies are so subjective of a medium that I don't, you're never going to be like ultimately reassured about a movie going into it. It's just like, it's just not going to happen. So it's like, I'm never going to watch a review or I'll, to be honest, I barely ever read reviews. I'm mostly just like watch reviews on YouTube, or more accurately, like listen to them while I'm doing something else. It's rare that I'll ever just like sit down and consume a review. But like, I don't ever watch a review and then say, this person said that the movie is good. So now if the movie is bad, or if I watch the movie and I think it's bad, then that person was wrong and they let me down. It's like, no, what? They just had a different opinion than me. They had a different experience than me with this very, very subjective art form. So I don't think that you should necessarily like, it's like when you're reading a review and they say that a movie is good, when you're looking at the Rotten Tomatoes score and it's positive, you should never, I think it is malpractice to take that and then say, well, if I end up disagreeing after I watch the movie, then there's something wrong that happened here. The critics were wrong. They let me down. There's something wrong with the system here. It's like, no, that's not how it works. It's like all a review is, like when I make my reviews, I'm never making them with the with the idea that, well, my review is like, what am I saying here? Like, I'm never making them saying that like, oh, I can for sure tell you that you're gonna like this, or I'm never trying to like convince you that I'm right. Like, if you dislike the movie, I'm not trying to tell you why you're wrong. All I ever try to do in my reviews is explain my perspective on a movie, so that when you're watching my review, you can either gain a new perspective, like gain my perspective, or understand why you disagree with me. Because hopefully if I explain it well enough, you'll understand my point of view, but then you'll still disagree with me, but you'll ultimately have a better perspective on the movie. Like, that's all I'm trying to do. That's all a review ever tries to do, is to just explain your perspective on a movie in a way that your audience can take something out of it. There's just such a weird adversarial relationship people have with reviewers. It's just weird.
and money on them, and critics need someone to be reading or watching their reviews for their jobs to exist. So why would critics versus audiences even be a thing unless someone was benefiting from sustaining this conflict? Stick with me here, this is relevant, I promise. The whole idea of review aggregators like Rotten Tomatoes can trace their way back to basically a single place, a show called At the Movies, presented by a pair of critics named Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert. Their whole shtick was that in lieu of scores, they'd both issue movies a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Not only was it an entertaining show presented by a pair of knowledgeable guys talking about their capital O movie opinions, but over the years, audiences got to know Siskel and Ebert's personal tastes, to the point that they could even tell from a glance what sort of movie they were getting into depending on the direction the thumbs pointed. This was great for consumers, allowing them to get a clear and concise way of getting the broad strokes on a film's quality. But for the studios, it was even better. The marketing value of this cannot be overstated. If a movie managed to get these two to agree that it was good, that was huge. Overall, this system was a win-win for everyone during a time when information didn't travel at the speed of the internet. And it kind of sounds like what Rotten Tomatoes is supposed to be in the modern day, right? Let me just see how good or bad a movie is at a glance. There's a problem with how Rotten Tomatoes handles things. Back when it was just two guys on TV, it was easy to keep up with their opinions and figure out how they thought. But now there are thousands of critics with followings across a lot of different platforms. And in scaling up so much, adding so many people to the process, literally hundreds of critics in most cases, well, you start to lose the nuance of the individual opinion. No longer do you think, oh, Roger Ebert liked this thing? I like the other things he recommended, so I'm gonna like this one too. Now the individual thoughts are basically stripped out of the process, flattened down and combined with everyone else's until all you see is a number.
As I'm in the midst of a
Okay, I think MapPad is kind of getting to
Grammarly has again been a lifesaver.
do an area here where I think I might actually agree.
Sometimes it's going to be a big number with a tomato next to it. Sometimes it's a small number with a green little slime next to it. Throw in audience reviews. Now you got yourself two numbers. And would you look at that? If they're both big, you have the new version of 2 thumbs up. Everyone loves the film, and you, as a moviegoer, should go see it immediately. And if they don't line up, well, now you've got yourself some conflict. And the suits at all the ad agencies have really been able to twist this one to their advantage. Marketing loves a good conflict narrative. Coke versus Pepsi, Apple versus Android, Xbox versus PlayStation. But what they love even more is how these conflicts get consumers to self-sort into neat and tidy boxes so they're even easier to market to. It's been happening forever. So if you end up with a film that critics aren't feeling but audiences are, the studio can then turn around and say, the critics don't like our movie, but so what? Our movie is for you.
Yeah.
Joe. And that can do wonders to create a passionate fan base, an us versus them narrative. You know how ads will sometimes just pull quotes from all sorts of different reviews?
Critics agree. The Avengers is a must-see movie event for everyone.
It's gonna be fun.
Well, when Batman v Superman bombed with critics and at the box office, the film's official account started tweeting out what looked to be press quotes attributed to random Twitter users. You have to see it for yourself. And wouldn't you know it, the Mario movie is now doing the exact same thing. They're leaning in hard on the audience score, tweeting a web spot saying just, the audience has spoken. And it's getting the intended effect. Literally, the #1 reply to this thing is exactly. We
True.
about critics' opinions. Either way, pretty much everyone with actual money invested in this thing comes out a winner. Nintendo and Universal have a movie that fans start defending in a surprisingly long-legged discourse. Critics and content creators can write articles and make videos like
True.
this one, actually discussing why critics are or aren't wrong. And Rotten Tomatoes gets clicks and traffic as people go to look up the scores, defend their opinions on the title, review it themselves, and the whole website brand becomes part of the conversation, all without getting dragged through the mud, because they're the middleman. Or are they really the neutral middleman? If you really want to start getting into the conspiracy theory of it all, do you know who actually owns Rotten Tomatoes? Like,
Isn't it Warner Brothers?
that runs the website? It's Fandango Media, a movie ticket retailer. And that makes a lot
Oh,
of sense.
okay.
You go to see how a film's being reviewed, and if it catches your
I don't know why I thought it was
fancy,
Warner
you can
Brothers.
buy the ticket right there at the bottom of the Rotten Tomatoes page. You know, right? But if you go one step further up that corporate ladder, Fandango Media is jointly owned by Warner Brothers Discovery and
I was right.
NBC Universal, who between them own all of this. I'm not saying but isn't it interesting that one of those companies
Sussy.
a kids film based on a popular video game that has wildly different reception from critics and audiences, thereby driving this very conversation, and that the Mario movie is literally just 1 point on the rotten side for the critics.
That's
Not
so,
bad.
dude, that is so funny. It's like, oh my gosh. People are so weird and so conspiratorial because it's like, there are like so many people that because it's like whenever like a DC movie that comes out and it's terrible, there are like so many people that will always be like, oh, the Rotten Tomatoes has an anti-DC bias, blah, 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 blah. But it's like, well, it's interesting. It's like they're owned by Warner Brothers. No, they don't. It's like the fact that it's owned by Warner Brothers, and it just happens to be the case that for the most part, like Marvel movies generally like rank higher than DC movies should really just go to show that like, nah, for the most part they probably just playing the statistics as they are. And it just so happens that DC movies do worse than Marvel because, at least in my opinion, when we're talking about the DCEU, they just kind of have been worse than Marvel. Anyways, that's interesting.
Bad that it looks terrible, but just enough to fuel discourse in the community and episodes like this. Like I said, that's taking it to an extreme, but I'm just putting that little nugget of information out there for consideration. So what do we do here, loyal theorists? How do we do better? Well, I don't think the answer is to never pay attention to reviews, nor do I think it's to take the audience's word as gospel. Instead, I think it's to take both of these things into account. As I've shown here today, numbers can tell you a lot. Data is a great way to visualize a story, but rarely is it the whole story. For me, I'm a firm believer in finding and then following film reviewers whose personal tastes largely align with your own.
I mean, yeah.
I love the more casual reviews of Jeremy Jahns, the cinematic sensibilities of Chris Stuckman, and the overall industry coverage of Dan Murrell.
Yo, Jeremy Jahns is wildin'. I think he gave like, what did he get? He gave the Guardians of the Galaxy volume 3 a good time, no alcohol required. Are you serious, Jeremy? L plus You Fell Off plus Ratio. Get out. These creepers are ganging up on me. But anyways.
All right here on YouTube.com. Is Chris Stuckman sometimes a bit too artsy for my taste? Yeah. Is Jeremy sometimes a bit of an apologetic fanboy for franchises? Absolutely. Does Dan Murrell... Well, actually, to be honest, I don't have a lot of complaints with Dan. I usually really agree with his perspective. If anything, he sometimes hedges his opinion a bit too much. Anyway, between these three, I feel confident knowing that I'm in good hands, getting a solid, well-rounded review from three professionals looking at a movie all through their own unique lenses. And from there, I'm then empowered to draw my own conclusions. There are dozens of incredible reviewers just like them here on YouTube. If you have
Okay, I think I'm overall, I think I actually agree with Matt Pat, at least as far as the way that he approaches film criticism.
your favorites that deserve attention, please, please, please call them out down in the comments below so I and everyone else can go and check them out. And as always, my friend,
because yeah, at the end of the day, it's like, you don't need to get upset whenever somebody disagrees with you. It's like, it's okay. It's okay that some people wanted more from the Mario movie. And if you're okay with its mediocrity, that's great. You enjoy the Mario movie. Nobody's stopping you from doing that. Nobody wants to stop you from doing that. But it's also okay for them to have wanted more from it, you know? That goes with any other movie. Maybe you hated a movie that other people disliked, or that other people liked. It's okay for them to like it. It's okay for you to dislike it, you know?
and remember, it's all just a theory.
But yeah, like, I don't know that I necessarily agree with him trying to like find all of these trends or whatever to explain the critic rating. It's just I just think that art is just a subjective medium, man. And sometimes things are going to hit people differently depending on where they're at in their lives, just depending on a whole spectrum of variables. That's why I don't know, like for me, it's like when I watch a bad movie, I never get like angry, or like I'll rarely get angry about it being a bad movie. Like I appreciate most of my experiences with art, because it's like, if something is terrible, then the act of me thinking in my brain about like what my opinion on it is, that's fun for me. And that in and of itself is like an enjoyable experience to me, you know? So that's why it's like, I don't need to like go into a movie necessarily enjoying it, you know? Does that make any sense? So I mean, that's also probably why like if somebody said that a movie was good and then I end up not liking it, I don't hold any ill will towards that person. I don't hold any scorn towards that person. It's like we're chill. You liked it, I didn't. And that's an interesting conversation to have. You know? Am I making sense? I don't know. Let me know what you thought about this video down in the comments down below. Cause yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think if I missed anything else that MatPat said, because there was, I'm not gonna lie, that shenanigans occurring trying to get my stuff back kind of took me out of the loop there. But overall, at least I think I agree with him when it comes to, for the most part, about how he approaches his consumption of film criticism. In the sense that, yeah, like, reach out, like, look at multiple people, see who you like, see who you agree with. I do think that is a good strategy. And just find people with different perspectives from you, you know? And just think a bit more critically about art. And think more critically about why somebody might disagree with you, and see if you can understand where they're coming from. And when you do that, you're then able to strengthen your own perspective. So, yeah, be more positive or whatever. I don't know. Who cares? Bye.